You refresh your banking app on a Thursday night, doing math you already know the answer to. The balance reads $112. Payday is Tuesday. Rent. Groceries. The card payment. The thing you forgot to budget for, because life does not ask permission before it breaks. Somewhere out there is a version of you on every rung of this ladder. One version counts coins before payday. One version flies business class without checking the fare. One version makes more in a year than most households imagine. And here's the contradiction. The version that actually feels rich is not necessarily the one at the top. Stay with the ladder, because each rung gives you more money, but it does not always give you more freedom. At $17,000, money is not a plan. You do not manage it. You survive it. Your phone is prepaid, not because you love flexibility, but because a contract asked questions your credit could not answer. The screen is cracked in the corner. You keep using it because the crack still leaves enough glass to type. On Sunday night, you open the fridge and negotiate with it. Eggs, half a bag of rice, something in a container you are not fully sure about. Twice a month, you go to the food bank. You tell no one. Not because you are ashamed of needing help exactly, because explaining poverty takes energy, and energy is one more thing you are short on. Then the tire goes flat. Not all four. Not the engine, just one tire. But at this level, one tire is not a tire. It is a 3-week emergency. It is the ride to work. It is the late fee. It is the extra shift you cannot get because you cannot get there. For context, the lowest income quintile has a median saving rate of about negative 23%. That means spending is not just close to income. It is above income, and the difference gets filled with borrowing, favors, overdrafts, and delay. This is the part people get wrong. At the bottom, the problem is not that you bought the wrong coffee. The problem is that there is no margin for reality. You do not dream about getting rich. You dream about hitting zero. At $40,000, the world starts treating you like you should be fine. You have a job title that sounds stable. You have direct deposit. You have a 2014 Corolla with a check engine light you have stopped seeing, the way people who live near train tracks stop hearing trains. You are not poor in the obvious way anymore. That is what makes this level so confusing. You rent a room with a roommate in the cheap, rough part of town. You buy groceries without counting every item, but you still put one thing back at the register. Most nights, dinner is McDonald's on the drive home, eaten too fast in the Corolla, because cooking feels like one more job after the job. You pay your share of rent, but it lands like a punch. You have cards now, real cards, not just debit. And across 3 of them, there is $11,000 sitting there, collecting interest at about 24%, feeding quietly while you sleep. Your emergency fund is $312. It feels responsible until the Corolla makes a sound like loose metal in a blender. To put that in perspective, $40,000 is still below the $80,020 median household income. You are not in the middle. You are in the bottom half, wearing the costume of the middle. And this is where the trap gets elegant. Minimum payments create the feeling of progress, while the balance barely moves. Debt becomes an anti-asset. It works against you all day, all night, weekends, holidays, while you are tired, while you are trying, while you are doing everything right. The quiet realization arrives slowly. More income would help. Of course it would. But if every dollar has a hole in it, more dollars do not fill the bucket. They just make the leak harder to see. At $80,000, you breathe for the first time in your adult life. Not a deep breath. Not the kind where your shoulders drop and stay down. But a breath. You live in your own 1-bedroom now. No roommate. No second toothbrush by the sink that is not yours. The upgrade is privacy, not place. It is still the same not-so-good part of town, the same tired streets, the same packages you do not leave outside too long. But the door closes behind you. And for the first time, the silence belongs to you. You pay the card off every month now. The first time it happens, you stare at the zero like it is a trophy. No interest, no punishment, no little fire burning under the floorboards. Once a year, you take a flight. Middle seat, No complaints. You pack snacks from home, but you also buy coffee at the airport and do not feel like you have committed a crime. For context, this is the exact U.S. median household income, about $80,020. The average is higher, around $114,000, but that is because the top pulls the mean upward. You are not average in the way people casually use the word. You are the real middle. And the real middle is better than drowning, but it is not the same as safe. One layoff, one medical bill, one rent increase, and the floor can tilt back toward the level below. Even here, a third of U.S. households are housing cost-burdened, spending over 30% of income on housing. This is the lesson that does not fit on a paycheck. Comfortable and safe are not the same thing. Your income covers your life now. The gap between what comes in and what goes out finally turns positive, but it is thin enough to see through. At $130,000, your life starts acquiring small freedoms. Not yachts, not private chefs, not the cartoon version of rich. Small freedoms. You order appetizers without checking the price first. You replace shoes before the soles are completely gone. When a friend suggests dinner, your first thought is not, "Can I afford this?" It is, "What time?" You still rent a one-bedroom, but now it is in a genuinely nicer part of town. Better floors, better light. Same size, better neighborhood. A place that looks like adulthood when people come over. But you pull six figures and still cannot crack home ownership, especially at today's high mortgage rates. Made it on paper, locked out of buying in real life. Your retirement account crosses a number that finally feels like momentum. Not enough to relax. Enough to notice. The line on the screen is no longer flat. It has a slope. A small one. But a slope is how compounding first introduces itself. Statistically, this is roughly the top quarter of households. You have cracked a level most people never see, and still the fear is there. It just moved. At $17,000, the fear was a tire. At $40,000, it was the card balance. At $80,000, it was the layoff. Here, it is the rent, the lifestyle, the quiet sense that if the paycheck stops, the life you built starts sending invoices immediately. Here's the part nobody says out loud. Lifestyle rises to meet every raise unless something interrupts it. The nicer apartment, the better car, the better neighborhood, the vacations that become normal after the second time. Your assets are beginning to work in the background now. Retirement contributions, quiet little machines. But the main engine is still you, your alarm, your inbox, your ability to keep earning. At $235,000, people start using the word rich around you, sometimes joking, sometimes not. 9 of 10 households earn less than you. That sentence should feel like the end of the story. It is not. You have choices now that used to belong to other people. Both spouses max retirement accounts. Italy in July becomes a thing you can actually book, not just hover over in a browser. 10 days. Good dinners. Business class on one leg. Because once you taste that extra space, economy starts to feel like a memory of punishment. And this is finally where buying happens. Not the dream house, not the forever house. A starter home with the word starter doing a lot of emotional work. Because mortgage rates are so high, even $235,000 stretches only so far. The payment stings. The first few months, you look at it like a large animal living in your house. It does not attack you exactly, but you are always aware of it. You do not check the grocery receipt. You do not panic when insurance renews. You do not need the tax refund to survive the spring. And then Sunday night arrives. You are on the couch, scrolling, and someone's kitchen is larger than your first apartment. Someone's quick getaway looks like your dream trip. Someone your age seems to have skipped 3 rungs and landed in a different weather system. The comparison machine turns on. Here's the part the data makes brutal. The top 10% income threshold is about $234,769. But the 1% is nearly 3 times higher. This number feels enormous from below and strangely incomplete from inside. Hold that feeling because the fear at the top is the strangest one of all. And there is another twist. A top 10% household might be one earner at $235,000 or two earners around $118,000 each. Same rank, different lives, different childcare, different hours, different exhaustion. That is the lesson here. Rank is not lifestyle. A number on a percentile chart cannot tell you who is carrying the calendar, who is answering emails after dinner, who is driving to pickup, who is too tired to enjoy the thing they can finally afford. Your assets matter now. But the paycheck is still the sun, everything orbits. At $316,000, the world calls you rich. Not billionaire rich, not tabloid rich, not name on a building rich. But inside, it feels more like Henry, high earner, not rich yet. The better neighborhood is no longer theoretical. You buy a smaller home in a genuinely nicer neighborhood. Good schools, quiet streets, a place where the sidewalks feel calm. Not a mansion, not rooms echoing with empty space. Just a tighter house in a better place, with a payment that reminds you access is expensive. You lease cars because at this level you optimize cash flow, convenience, timing. You use phrases your younger self would have mocked. And yet, your day-to-day life is not as different from the top 10% as people imagine. The neighborhood is nicer, the trips are nicer, the hotels have better towels, the restaurant menus become less threatening, but breakfast still happens. Email still happens. Family logistics still happen. The calendar still fills itself while you are not looking. For context, the top 5% income threshold is about $315,504. You are high enough now that the difference is no longer just what you can buy. The difference is what you can keep. This is the pivot point. At the bottom, money disappears because it has to. At the middle, money disappears because life is expensive. Here, money disappears because lifestyle can become infinitely creative. The top income quintile's median saving rate can reach about 46%, while the lowest is negative. Same country. Opposite machines. One machine pulls you backward while you sleep. The other starts pushing you forward. At this level, the real flex is not the car in the driveway. It is the gap. The space between what hits your account and what leaves it. The distance where wealth begins to grow quietly, without needing applause. More income now mostly buys a bigger version of the same life. What changes everything is what stays behind. At $475,000, you are near the doorway to the 1%, but not through it yet. This is a strange place to stand. From almost every angle below, you look like the top. From the angle above, you are still arriving. You can finally see the upper-class life clearly, but you cannot quite fund it at full size. You own modestly, compared with the people around you. You want the lakeside cabin, and quietly, you cannot swing it. You want private school for the kids, and the math does not actually work, so you flex where you can. Your first real luxury watch. A Rolex Datejust, fluted bezel on a Jubilee bracelet. Not a mansion, not a second home. A smaller trophy for a bigger life that is still just out of reach. You fly business on every flight now. Not as a celebration, as a standard. The fare difference becomes less shocking, the way small fees used to be invisible to people above you. But the real shift is happening somewhere less cinematic. In accounts you do not check every morning. The investments are no longer cute. They are no longer side characters. They are beginning to have a voice in the room. A dividend lands, a fund appreciates, a business distribution arrives. A portfolio moves in a week by more than your old monthly paycheck, and for a second, you feel the ground change texture under your feet. On the percentile chart, you are between the top 5% threshold of about $316,000 and the top 1% threshold of about $631,500. You are not just earning more. You are close enough to see the point where money starts coming from money, but seeing it is not owning it. Income is still what holds the roof up. The assets are growing, but they are not yet carrying the life. The engine is changing pitch, not changing drivers, and that is why this level feels so strange. You can see the game above you, but you cannot quite play it at full size. At $631,500, you finally reach the number everyone means when they say rich, the floor of the top 1%. You have a portfolio across accounts you do not personally manage. There are people whose job is to summarize your own money back to you in clean charts and calm voices. Trips happen so often you stop counting them as trips and start remembering them by meals, views, weather. You do not check your bank balance anymore, not because you are free, because the number stopped explaining your life. At this level, the bank balance is not the dashboard. The dashboard is ownership, equity, tax treatment, liquidity, control, time. Now the expert layer appears. Accountants and lawyers are not emergency contacts anymore. They are part of the machine. They play a game that is almost invisible from below, not because the rules are secret exactly, but because most people never get enough pieces on the board to need the rules. The lake cabin you could not swing at $475,000 comes back wearing a different costume. Now you buy it as a short-term rental. Your accountant orders a cost segregation study, and a large write-off moves across the page against your income. Oil and gas drilling rights enter the conversation, not because you grew up dreaming about wells, but because the deductions can cut the tax bill. You donate appreciated stock to a donor-advised fund. Philanthropy, yes, but also status. A name on the list, a seat at the table. This is the part lower levels almost never see. The leverage is not just having more money. It is having access to the people who know how ownership gets optimized. You have climbed your whole life to reach the top, and then you look up. Above you sit the 0.1% and the 0.01%, people who can earn your whole year in an afternoon. The ladder does not end. It just becomes more private. For context, the top 1% income threshold is about $631,500, but the deeper truth is not the threshold, it is the mix. The bottom 90% get about 75% of income from wages. The top 1% make only about a third from labor. The rest comes from capital gains, dividends, and business income. In plain language, most people get paid because they worked. At the top, money gets paid because it owns. And still, the fear persists. Not the old fear, not the grocery fear, not the flat tire fear. A different costume. Losing status, losing access, losing control. Falling behind people so rich they make your success feel ordinary. That is the final trick of the ladder. Every rung promises that the next one will end the comparison. Then the next one hands you a better view of someone above you. Here is what every single level had in common. The fear never left. It just changed costumes. Bigger house, bigger mortgage, bigger comparison. The people who actually felt rich at every rung were not always the ones who earned the most. They were the ones who widened the gap between what they made and what they kept. Wealth was never the number. It was the distance between you and your next financial fear.